Everyone can hear me? Yes. I didn't hear from the back. Everyone can hear me? Yes. It's not working. How's the Josh? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Again, how's the Josh? Yes, how's the Josh? Yes, it's going down. Anyway, that's not the intent. So, a very sincere hi to every one of you. I am Saurabh Rajpal. Hello. Yeah, I'm Saurabh Rajpal. I work as technical solution consultant in Google India. What that means is I work with the top partners from Google and make them or enable them to have better experiences on their web by not only improving the website performances but also helping them to integrate new offerings from Chrome so that they can reduce the friction down the funnel for the users, even if it's for the e-commerce websites and stuff like that. And today we're going to talk about AMP for emails in e-commerce. I'll gradually come to that, but before that we'll cover something. Now a quick raise of hands for the people who have seen the movie Ab Tak Chhappan. Irrespective. Yeah, so basically point is that is a state, like those are the number of sites which are built with CMS. Point being, CMS has huge potential and that's where we have reached gradually. If you look at say around 2011, there was just around 1/4 of the total number of websites. Now we are more than half in terms of number of websites which are built using CMS. And that is like the community that you represent, right? Being from the Magento community. So huge round of applause for you guys. People are not convinced why we're clapping for ourselves, but it's okay. It's good to pat on your back at times, right? Anyway, so this is some kind of stats which tells you about what exactly are we doing in terms of the size of the website that we are spreading. Now, if you look here, each year on year, our websites are growing on size, and images also to some extent keep on growing, and that's one of the major challenges for e-commerce. You would agree, right? Like images are something which you can't get or done away with, and that's where your website performance does have to tackle that in a way. We'll come back to this, but just before I talk more about performance and what exactly each of the things mean, there are few matrices which should be of top concern, or you should understand that before getting into the performance side of things. Now the first thing is first paint, which is like, think of any way your browser is painting your web page. So as soon as something gets painted onto the browser, that's called first paint. But that might or might not be meaningful. And that's where the next matrix, which is first contentful paint, comes into the picture. That is like there has been some content which is making sense to the user in a way. And similarly, there are other like first meaningful paint and time to interactive. Now, why are these metrics very important? Is because imagine if this was your website, right? I might have repeated this from the last time, right? So that's the kind of impact, you still remember that, right? And if this is your user who's waiting for your website to load, it's bad. So that's why you need to worry about performance to some extent. Okay, so talking about the first contentful paint, we measure at say global level that how many of the websites are loading within first second, like are at least showing FCP within 1 second. And as you would see, there has been an uptrend across. Irrespective of the platform you're using, there has been an uptrend. And if I specifically talk about Magento, even that has improved. So again, I think you guys are doing a great job by making somewhat performant website. So again, a huge round of applause for yourselves. I saw people lot more content this time. Okay, ab to banta hai. Chalo, theek hai. But I think it's still we are still like far away from reaching a number which would look very good. We still are at around 20%, I'd say, 25%, I'd say, which the sites which are loading within or showing something on the page within 1 second. So we know that why performance is important. And speaking of performance, there are two things that you should take care of. First is understanding how your code is performing. Now, when I say how your code is performing, that's when you do the lab testing. Like even before you roll out something, you do check how your website is doing, right? And that's where you can stimulate something on the lab and understand how your web page performance is. But on the other hand, there is something called performance in the real world, which is how the users are actually receiving your website as. Because there are multiple things which you can't stimulate, right? So lab data, talking of that, it is great because it gives you a lot of context around how exactly you have built your site, even before you roll it out, right? Even before you have made the changes and rolling it out, you have the understanding if your website will actually be good or not, how your code is. But speaking of the real user metrics, which is the field data, you understand the kind of maybe different mobile sets where people are accessing your website from, the kind of networks they're accessing it from, right? Because we sitting in tier 1 cities don't really realize how bad the internet connection can be in other cities, or we using the high-end phones like Pixel or OnePlus don't realize how it might perform on the low-end phones. So that's where this kind of data becomes very handy for you to understand. But I think ideally what you should do, you should use a combination of both, which is lab and field, so that at least from the rolling out perspective, you're already ready. And then once it goes in the field, you are aware about how it is really reacting. Now, why I was talking about this, so that I could introduce you to 3 different tools which you could use for each of these scenarios. If I talk about the lab data, we can certainly use Lighthouse. I think I talked about it last time as well, and some of you might be already aware about it since it's a common tool by now. On the right hand side, we have field data, which is Chrome User Experience Report, which is also commonly called as CRUX. Just a short form, कोई science नहीं है. Chrome User Experience Report, CRUX. So that's one thing. How many of you have used CRUX? No one? Just raise your hand, I'll give away something. Okay, cool. Okay, so the last one is the middle one, which is a combination of both, which is the page speed insight. It gives you information about the lab data plus the real world data as well. Now, very quickly, this is how the Lighthouse looks. It gives you a performance score and also the other scores if you have chosen to run those audits. And this is how it looks in terms of all the metrics that you see here, plus the performance score. I won't go deep into this because I have covered it last time, but just to introduce one more new thing into this is the stack packs, which means apart from giving very generic recommendations which it used to give irrespective of what tech stack you use, now with stack packs, it's also giving you the recommendations which are very specific to your platform. For example, Magento in our case, it might give you some recommendation which might not apply to other platforms, but just specifically for you, right? So this way, you would be able to optimize your website even further. Now, this was of course built with community contributions. I think this is still in progress for Magento, and that's why if you can go to this link, you can read more about how you can integrate or contribute more to develop it. So in case you have any more insights that you could share or anything that you could work upon, please put it here as an open source contributor. Moving on, the second one is page speed insights, which I talked about. This is a combination of field data and lab data. And if you're worrying about how exactly this is calculated, this is actually taken from, and this is based on actual users' metrics for the people who have opted in. So a lot of you would have seen when you are actually using Chrome for the first time, they ask you, would you like to share this information or the usage patterns for us to make your experience better? I'm mostly certain that most of you would have said no, but there are some wise people who have done that so that experience can actually be, I should not say wise though, but yeah. Point being, they have actively given the consent that you can still track this data to understand how this is performing in the real world. And that's where we have almost around 60 lakh origins where this data is available for. And if you're doubting that, I'm showing you the query which you could actually use to get this. So it is an open source data which is available as BigQuery, and you can actually fetch it out. What this is more important for is also that if you have a competitor website, you can even track their numbers. Like how exactly their website is dealing in the real scenario. So if you're not doing that, maybe your competitor is already doing that for you, right? So To go a bit deep into it, you could actually go and create a Google Cloud project and enable the BigQuery API. So this is how the the BigQuery interface looks like. You can read about the just like any database, right? How you query to that database by describing the table. You could actually ask for describing Chrome UX report, and you would understand the kind of metrics that is available for you to explore further. Now, if you go and compose a query and write your query here, for example, select count distinct origin from Chrome UX report.all.2019-09. That means till that data point, then you get this response, which I just showed you in the starting. So similarly, this table has lot of information that you could explore, not only for your website, but even for your competitors, as I mentioned earlier. Moving on, so this Crux dashboard that I talked about earlier, it's a very handy tool even for non-developers, because not many of you would be very comfortable about writing these queries and stuff like that. So whatever matrices are really important for you to track, these are already available in the dashboard, and you could create a copy for yourself by going to this link, which is g.co/Chrome UX dash. Right? Now what you're seeing here is it's showing you the distribution of devices from phone, desktop and tablet for Magento. Similarly, you could do that for your domain as well. Now this is how the dashboard actually looks like. Each one of the metrics that we see here you can actually create one for yourself. The one that I'm showing right now is the first Contentful Paint. It shows how your website has been trending in terms of performing over the months. Then on the x-axis, we can see the percentage of pages that are actually performing in fast, medium or high. When I say fast, in the sense, the number of websites which are loading within 1 second. Average means the number of pages which are loading within 1 to 3 seconds. And third one being which are loading beyond. Not only like loading in the first Contentful Paint, because that is a metric that we are seeing here. It shows these things, then yeah, and then you can see the variance, how it is really responding. Minded, this is from real users, and why it is really important for you to understand is that just in case you have rolled out a feature, just think of it this way: you thought something was very jazzy, and your product manager comes up and says that please implement this, and the moment you roll it out, it might be impacting your performance negatively, right? And that something that you could easily track in the real user scenario too. So last time I also gave you a brief about HTTP archive. I'm not sure how many of you actually went back and tried it out, but I'll just quickly go through some of the stats that we could gather by selecting Magento from the report. So what we could see was that out of the 50 lakh sites, there was around 57,000 sites from Magento in this sample size that we have at HTTP archive. And some of the interesting numbers that we could get was that in terms of total kilobytes that each of the websites are shipping, non-Magento sites had 1745 KB, while Magento sites still have some work to do. They are on the higher side. In terms of number of sites which are already on HTTPS, I think Magento was clearly winning. So good job. FCP wise, average median is 7.1 seconds. For Magento, it is 8.5 seconds. And by no means I'm saying this is a Magento level problem. This can be the reason because you have implemented that way. This is agnostic of how the platform is performing. Again, on the first input delay, which is like the moment when user clicks on something and something happens. Like you might have seen that you click on something and it happens after a while. That is called the first input delay on the starting when the page loads. So in that sense, I think Magento did better than the rest. And as a platform also, Chrome is dedicated towards making this experience better by default, so that a lot of things are already optimized. Now just for a second, what you're seeing here is Twitter being run on pre and post, the platform thing. We could already optimize Chrome for say making it run a bit faster. And generally we have seen after these changes have gone in, websites are performing 20% times better. Interesting? Don't give me a shout. Yeah. Cool. Now, speaking about performance, one thing which I really wanted to bring up was this AMP as well, because I don't know if coming from the e-commerce side, you might have heard about it or not. It's really relevant for a lot of publishers, this technology which is called accelerated mobile pages. Now, what this is kind of a framework which is open source. It is pretty restrictive in the way you develop your web page. In the sense, it doesn't allow you to make the page bad. In the sense, it doesn't allow you like to have a lot of JavaScript options and other options. And it's really hard to make a bad page on AMP. Like, agar you have built a bad page on AMP, salute a boss. But biggest advantage that AMP gives you is the benefit that cache gives. Like Google Cache, the pages are served from Google Cache. So that is like, you must have seen the lightning symbol on the articles that you see, right? This is basically powered by AMP. That means that the moment you click it, it's served from Google Cache and they're very instant. You might have seen that, right? And these are some of the benefits that a business are getting. This is available on amp.dev, so I won't go deep into it. But there is also a dedicated section on amp.dev which talks about how you can use AMP for e-commerce. And there have been some of the people who have tried this in the past, but it's been a sincere learning on our side that AMP may not work very well for the e-commerce website, right? Because of the way people are implementing it, because of the way people are understanding how do we stitch these sessions together. So because of that, this might not work the best for you. Now the question is, why did I talk about it? And probably the reason is that AMP is no more just the accelerated mobile pages. It's not just a framework to build pages. It's an ecosystem in its own. Like with AMP, you could build stories, you could build ads, you could build emails, all those flashing things which are going on there, right? And that's where today we talk about AMP for emails, for building the dynamic mails, which is the core topic here for today. Now, if you would ask me why AMP for email, my first thing to you would be, go back to the era and think about emails, right? Just emails, if you see, you use it in like daily. You use it for so many things. Not only for personal, for the business side of things as well. You use it for receipts, promotions, customer experience surveys, marketing plans, recommendations from business, and so many different things, right? Notifications. I'm pretty sure if you are from the e-commerce background, you would have sent out a how was your experience survey kind of thing, right? Now, in that journey, just think, if a user has to click that link, hey, yes, I liked it. And then that person gets redirected to a URL out in a separate tab, and then waits for the site to load, right? So that you could submit the feedback again. It's a pain, right? If this would have been done within the email, using the dynamic nature of it, you already would have the response by them. So that is why dynamic emails are very relevant for e-commerce. Now, even before we go there, let's look at this thing. That there are 1.5 billion monthly Gmail users, and there are more than 280 billion emails which are sent daily in 2018. Then these numbers are like growing anyway. But if you look at how web has evolved from 2000 to now, right? You could not even imagine like doing anything of like sheets, using documents or sheets onto the browser. Now you're able to do that. That means web as a platform has evolved a lot. But when we speak of emails, it has significantly remained same, right? There hasn't been much innovation around that. Now imagine it's part of your daily routine, so much so, but still there hasn't been any innovation in that. That's where dynamic emails is something which should excite you. So just to summarize, email plays a central role in our lives. The web has evolved, but email has been left behind. And that's where we have introduced something called as AMP for email. Now, this is called AMP for email is because you are using AMP framework essentially for the tagging, for the codes and stuff like that, but building emails for that. And if you're not aware, maybe because you probably end up using the plugins and all, when you are sending out the email, you have to write a certain code, which then the email reader renders and shows it to you. In a similar fashion, if you define a MIME type of AMP for email and you write the code for AMP for email, the email would actually come across as dynamic. Now, if you say why AMP for email, it is interactive, it is versatile, and it is smarter. And I give you small glimpses of why that is so. Now, think if you could actually introduce carousels within your email. As a e-commerce website, if you could actually show the catalog in a carousel way, won't that be interesting? Is there anyone who doesn't agree to that? I was like, no? Okay. Sorry? That you can only do by hovering. So those kind of features would always be there. This implies to your website as well. So the point made was people might want to read through it rather than seeing the object moving. But that is something which is relevant for your website as well, as I just mentioned. And you could hover it and to make it stop. Similarly, think if you could introduce an accordion there, just so that if somebody wants to read about your product details further. Interesting. So there are similar such features which you could achieve through coding for AMP for email. Okay, anyway, we'll read through this side. So what are the advantages? It brings in, yeah. So Google Docs, for example, it's one of the examples that you can see here. What we can see right now is that if somebody has commented you in onto the Google Docs, you could directly read the things from your mail and then also reply directly here, rather than actually opening the Google Doc where the comment has been added, waiting for it to load, then replying back. So you could do these things. This is a real world scenario that I'm showing you right now. So meanwhile, while this comes back up, what are the kind of use cases that anyone can think of that they could leverage while they build or think of building something like this? Anyone? Maybe have a form which you can fill up right then and there and submit. What? Right. So review is definitely one of them. What other use cases you can think of? Product can be purchased. That's too ambitious. Okay. Survey about the website. So survey is like common thing, survey or rating. Think beyond that. Not that beyond, but checkout from email. Good. Non-use of the product. More views of the. Okay. Okay. So you basically try show the entire catalog within the email itself. That's how the carousels and these things can be used. Do you want to bring this back up or should I continue this? I can talk about it I'm loving the use cases, and I think this is where, as e-commerce players, you I think are the most right audience for this kind of thing, because I'm pretty sure if you have identified the potential of the email campaigns that you run, right? You sometimes don't even get to know how many of the emails were actually opened or read, how many clicked through it. Now imagine if you could do all this, and if this could improve for you. I know I have not included those case studies here, but I remember this Goibibo could improve their email open rate from 4% to 25%. They also have a case study. Open it as in somebody opening and responding. Open it from email to website, to doing something. If you've defined something, now think of it this way: if you're sending newsletters, for example, you have too many CTAs in the email. That if you can you rate us, can you send us a feedback, can you do this, can you do that? But if a user is just clicked on something and they have gone somewhere, right, you probably would have missed out on actual CTA that you wanted for them to make a purchase. Correct? If somebody could achieve that from within the email, they could actually get more open rates to other things. So there's a common practice that if you include a link, okay, so these are some design guidelines that you should really have a purpose. And as I was talking about the newsletter thing, right? If you have a good enough, big enough newsletter, then you have a purpose that you don't want users to be lost on some of the non-CTS which you didn't want, right? Similarly, if discovery is really a problem, like for your products and all, you could use it that for navigation. That should the user be aware about it. Like this is a good practice that you should only use the dynamic elements for the things which people are probably aware about, that it would be dynamic, rather than just telling them something and they're not using it. Similarly, one second, I'll just see what else is there. Like if they're selecting something. Okay, so okay, I got it. Within the same email. For that, what you could do, I am not certainly sure if that would work, but at the end of the day, this is more like calling your APIs, like how you would do from your front end. So if there is a component which you were able to hide using, say, initially when it was sent, and then on click you call that API and fill it up, maybe it might work. It might be an interesting use case to explore out, but I'm not certainly sure if that's something which works out of the box, right? But I didn't think of it from e-commerce website perspective. If you had product availability as one of the features, right? I am showing you the catalog. Every time I come to your mail again, I see the updated catalog. That can be one use case, rather than somebody actually opening your last email and talking about the old products. Then you could also talk about if somebody has bounced off from your website, from e-commerce, you could retarget them by sending that product that, hey, you didn't buy this, with the availability. With the even in the cart, like if you have something added to the cart and you want to retarget, here you have this, you left this order here. Now somebody could actually click on buy and make a purchase right then and there. So you mean to say that when I get an email, I click on buy now before with the product in the cart? Yes, with the product in the cart, exactly. And because you are already using the APIs within the email, you already have the availability. So from a user's perspective, this is not like, okay, hey Saurabh, you were trying to buy this. Why don't you buy this? When I click on that, go to your website, out of stock, right? Will the user ever come back to you? Like, he'll think, what experience? Anyway, so talking about the ecosystem, what we have ready for the AMP for email, like for creation and design, you can use Tripo. For testing, you could use Litmus. These are all tools which are available, handily available for you. No. No. So the clients which handle these right now are Gmail, mail.ru. It's already available as a developer preview in Outlook, and on Yahoo Mail it is coming soon. By clients we mean that you can send the dynamic email, but will they be able to render it? So this is what the support is right now for. And in order to send it, of course, you must be using some servers to sending the emails, right? So that should be supportive as well of the MIME type, because if you are sending emails from non-supportive ones, they will just be trimmed off. So that code will never reach your email client. That's why these are the ones that you should be using. If you aren't using any of these, you could report it, and we will try to get them on board. And if you want to learn more, these are the links that you could try. I know I didn't mention that, but there is a plugin also available within Magento that you could use to do these kind of things. So maybe you could explore that out as well. I really wanted to cover some of the use cases from e-commerce. I had those slides, but sorry for the technical glitch, but I hope you really enjoyed the session and you're taking back something meaningful with you, right? Also on that note, for the people who were there last time, they're already aware of the ritual. For the ones who are new, I generally do this video at the end of it, where we all shout. No? People didn't remember. Cool. We'll shout Google Meets Magento. How innovative, right? Come on count of 3, okay? 1, 2, 3. Google Meets Magento. Google Meets Magento. Thank you, guys.